All right, good afternoon and welcome everyone. Great to have you back here for another series of webinars. Wish you all a seasoned greetings and great start to the new year. So nice to have you with me this afternoon. Got half an hour and a couple of things that I'd like to share with you today. One of them is just around some insights into what we've been hearing and receiving in terms of information from our practice partners. So it'll be useful for you in your planning to be able to get some further insights and look forward to some of your comments on that as well. And then finally, I've actually been doing some analysis of renovation activity just on the back of some inquiries that I've received from a few of you. And so I'd like to just sort of share my insights with that as well. Okay, now I'd like to get into a practice partner update. So as you're well aware, we work with 9 key practices, mainly in Auckland, but also in Wellington. Over the last few weeks, we've been in regular contact with them, trying to get an understanding of operationally, how they've been organised, the way that their staff are actually engaging with stakeholders, and in particular, what they're expecting from product suppliers. The purpose of this sort of session really is to think about how you're actually organising your specification activities. What are the things you should be doing, and any tips around sort of best practice, particularly in this red light era, which may well be with us for some time. All right, so I'm happy to take any questions or comments in the chat function, and let's get started. So first off, I want to talk about JASMAX. So when we think about the Auckland office, clearly it's a big practice with over 100 people, so they are restricted with the number of people that can actually attend. So the office is open. Their approach is to develop split teams. So they've actually taken their individual silos, have split the teams to be working remotely or in the office. They have got at any one time sort of a small contingent in the Auckland office, and the majority of people who are working remotely. That's alternating. There are some staff who aren't coming in at all, just in terms of personal choice, but the main sort of organizational structure is those split teams. Interesting talking to them, they see that structure lasting for quite some time. In fact, question around whether we would actually go back to full team in the office for 5 days. I think that's something for us to be thinking about in terms of our service offering, is how we can actually manage that if we've got this ongoing dynamic where we've constantly having people working remotely. They are still organised information and presentations through Michelle, who's the main contact there. She's organising CPD presentations. They're thinking about having those regularly. They put those onto the Vine, which is their local intranet, and from there it's really for the individual staff members to select whether they would attend. In terms of actually access the office, it's closed. So in terms of actual any physical presence there, that opportunity doesn't exist at the moment. Many of you would have been involved in our physical presentations. Obviously we're not doing those over the next few months. We are talking to JASMAX around putting together a digital program of presentations. I think there's a settling period for them at the moment, and so that's not something that we've got planned in the very near future, but we'll certainly, Sandy will keep you updated as to when is the right time for us to put that together. They're a busy practice, so lots of work on. I think the main focus there is really around productivity. And what I would say is that we're starting to see a theme here, less around being kept up to date with pure product information or product focused content, very much an interest around compliance. So you should be thinking about presentations you're doing and how they actually sort of demonstrate the correct level of detail and understanding that a BCA would be looking for. I'd certainly have that as an area of focus, for practices, and that particularly was something JASMAX sort of referenced. So I think that's a nice insight for us. All right, let's move on to Ignite. Thinking about, obviously, again, we've had a long established program there. We will be starting virtual sessions with them. So they're in a position where we can actually start an online format, so that they're more open to organised education, which is great. They're interested in longer format sort of CPD presentations, and also sort of shorter slots, which is something that we're working on at the moment. Again, they're very busy. For those of you who may have been in the Auckland office at the end of last year, you would have noted that they've actually now extended. So they've got 2 separate office spaces down in the viaduct. So they've got the finance, environmental teams, and there's one other that I have that escapes my mind, which are now actually further down towards the actual viaduct at the end of Pakenham Street. So there's a 150-metre walk between the 2 practices now. So just bear that in mind if there's anything that you are doing with them. If they're requesting samples, should be something that may well be something you want to reference. So again, they've got the way the practice is set up. They've got, there's a split there, so the office is attended, but it is, in all intents and purposes, closed to the wider staff. And we have a large number of the staff who are actually operating from home. Tauranga office, in terms of product education, they'll actually be looking to piggyback on the Auckland activity. So if there's anything you're doing with them, just bear in mind that their Christchurch and Tauranga officers will also would like to be involved. Okay, moving on. GHD Creative Spaces, they again are putting together education program. We're going to be supporting them with part of that. They've obviously got quite an active interiors team who also organise their own CPD presentations. So what the feedback we're getting from them is that they are busy, but are interested in some digital opportunities, which is good. Plenty of work on, and majority of them are working again remotely. Good to see another strong practice with a big workload, which is encouraging for all of us, and some commitment to be, to working with suppliers. They did, one of the comments we did get is that what they're expecting from suppliers, see, there's a little bit of a disconnect. So there's lots of emails coming out, which is, hey, we're open, we're here to help you. We've got staff and operations here in place. The reality is that they know that they're thinking that's actually that's the base statement for everyone. So comment was, if we are communicating with them, because there's emails flying around everywhere, let's make sure that there's actually some value in the communication. So it's not just putting your hand up and say, hey, don't forget about us, but we need to actually be able to have something newsworthy or of value in each communication. So it was certainly something that feedback that I got, just consider the messaging that we're sending out. Okay, context architects. Context are great because they obviously do quite a bit of feasibility work as well. So they're great people to get an understanding of particularly how the developer market is moving and that sort of larger residential industry. So certainly hearing a couple of things from them. One, that lots of rework on the feasibility is happening just due to availability of contractors and also cost of materials. They are also hearing plenty of feedback from contractors around what are the opportunities to substitute based on product not being available or dramatic price increases impacting use of materials. I think that they, again, they're a good practice to keep close to. They have got some good technology around, pretty much like everyone, I suppose, in terms of working from home as effectively as possible. Sense is that it's just going to take them a few weeks to get their staff bedded down in terms of putting together more formal structure for presentations and wider group engagement. certainly a number of big projects on the go, which is great from them. Where I've got a webinar with them next week, so I'll get some more feedback from the wider staff around what they're up to in terms of assistance from our supplier community. Chow Hill, we've got the least amount of information on them. If anyone's got any notes or comments, I'm happy to receive that offline or here as part of the forum. But certainly someone that we have a good relationship with, but I suppose that transition's taking a little bit longer for them than with others. Assemble. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Assemble, head office is in Newmarket. They've got 40 staff, and they actually do a lot of work in supporting the bigger practices. So we've got a good relationship with them and like their insights because they've got 20 or 30 architectural practices that they actually deal with, as well as having their own direct clients. Now, they've got 90% of their staff in the office, but the doors are closed. And in fact, the feedback from them in terms of staff security is that they don't actually see those doors opening for a while. So their message is, hey, suppliers do need to think about efficient and effective digital delivery of product education. I think that's going to be something that will be a main focus for many months to come. Like the other practice I've just mentioned, their favoured VC platform is Teams, so something that their staff are all very familiar with. They've got a very structured format around education. So they do they've got weekly knowledge learning sessions, which are on Thursdays. Some of you would have attended those in person. We were running sessions with them the second half of last year. They've got a 5-month trial where their whole team are in the office on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then it's optional for Monday and Friday. And I think this is something we should again consider. Is how these practices are going to be manned in the midterm. I think it may well be rare to actually expect everyone in the office once we actually get back to whatever the new normal is. Just some feedback on the market. Design phase work is still very strong. So they're seeing that not only in terms of their direct work, but across practices that they deal with. The construction phase they see is becoming patchy. And they are seeing contingencies come into play now with just a recognition that the level of resource available in the contractor and subcontractor market is actually going to be, it will continue to be patchy as we get through the next few months. So, that's going to have some impact in terms of our stock availability and delivery, and potentially with our install teams as well. But certainly that's a theme that they're seeing strengthen, over the last few weeks, and they, will see that continuing, particularly as the number of cases of COVID grow. Sarah, if the construction phase is patchy, what is the effect of that on the strong demand phase, according to Assemble? Sarah, I'm talking to Assemble. Their projects have probably just a design gestation period of probably 12 to 18 months, maybe longer. Majority of their fees actually come through design documentation rather than observation. So I think in terms of work on Assemble, this is a pretty good market for them. Because all the deadlines are on architectural firms. And the reality is none of them are working as efficiently as they were when everyone was in the office. So I think for that particular firm, they're going pretty well. They're probably more insulated from the impact of that patchiness in the construction phase than other traditional firms. Krista's got a comment saying similar feedback to smaller practices. Chris, I'm not sure what that references in terms of the amount of work or the way that they're structuring their operation, but if there's any other comments, just please send them through. So thanks for your feedback there. Right, let's move on. All right, DGSE. So part of the design group network. So effectively the largest office is in Wellington, which is who we're contracted to. So they've got 80 odd in the office there. They're flat out, really busy. They're interested in industry-wide presentations. We talked to them about doing something specific for their practice, and they're just not confident that they would their staff would have the headspace or time so to have that for us to do something there. So again, a very multidisciplinary architectural practice with lots on. The whole design group is busy, so good people to have relationships with. I think my feel for groups like this is that over time we'll actually need to get something more structured in place. But at this stage, we're not doing anything directly digitally, just based on that heavy workload. Summerset. So for those of you who aren't too familiar with the retirement operations, so actually recently sort of restructured their management team. They've got 45 in the design team, which now comes under design and construction. Used to be separate, design to construction, but that's now merged. And we've been working with them through most of last year, particularly on their focus towards the more metro, so the more medium and higher density villages that they're focusing on, like St John's here in Auckland is a great example of that. They are interested in some structured learning. So again, they would like to have something in place for their staff to continue to grow their understanding of solutions that obviously fit their designs. As all the retirement operators, they are busy, and because they're the way that they're set up with their design and build, they're facing change over to their own design team with contractor design and the main contractors. I think was quite difficult where most of their staff were in Wellington last year, and they've got some significant projects, particularly in Auckland. So still kind of reeling from that. But we have found that they're open and we've got good engagement with them. So we're pleased to be able to start bringing in presentation opportunities to their wider team. Pacific Environments, so based in Grafton. So again, they are busy. They've, like everyone else, they've got a mixture of in the office and working remotely. Again, they've really got their sort of head down and bum up. And so they're just leaving it up to staff if they're wanting to attend presentations. And what we're hearing, particularly with the graduates, is if you've got a problem, spend less time Googling, more time ringing. The overwhelming focus from the practice principals is don't spend half an hour trying to find things on websites. Try and give people a call. So one thing I should be aware of is how easy it is to access contact details for technical people. I still think that the nature of our graduates is to Google first, and then Google again, and then Google again, and then maybe email. Talking to a number of these practice principals, they do believe that in times like what we've got at the moment, there is a heavier reliance on outsourced expertise and technical assistance. They've all talked about the busyness of consultants. So again, comes back to the way we can position ourselves as technical experts, easy access to without contact details. I think let's give ourselves every opportunity for people to be able to contact us. All right, so that's our practice partners. So I am going to quickly cover off building consents before you'll start groaning. I'll make this quick and easy. So what I've done is I've had a look at the full year of 2021 building consents, the end of December. And this is the table we can get from Stats New Zealand. So nothing proprietary here. And you can see we've got the last 6 years. And I just wanted to reflect on a couple of things because I get questions about the A&A market, trying to understand how big it is, and particularly in relation to new builds. So I've looked at the consent value and just wanted to bring a few things to your attention. So firstly, let's look at detached housing. We've talked about this being very static almost over the last 5 years through to 2020, where we're in that 21 to 22,000 dwellings per annum. big jump that's come in the last 12 months. We've seen apartments getting close to doubling, retirement villages growing year on year. This is a big number here though. So these are our, is our medium density sweet spot. So we've got, from 4,000 to, we've got 400, we're at 400% of what we were 6 years ago, which kind of reflects everything that we do see. And when we add those together, that takes us to that, 49,000 odd building consents that we had as a rolling, or as an app for the last 12 months to December. It's interesting though, we've heard about the square meterage of the homes that we're building. You can see we've gone from 5 billion square meters. Whatever that's, I think it's 5 billion or 500 million. 5 billion. Let's take that. So we've seen that increase just over 50%, or just under actually, compared to dwelling numbers, which have increased significantly more. Just references the fact of those reducing floor areas. So what I wanted to have a look at was the A&A market. So we can see that in 2016, Stats New Zealand building consents approved had sort of $1.9 billion worth of A&A work compared to 10.6 billion of new builds. What's interesting is we come through really into, let's take to 2019, really just seen a slight gradual increase in A&A work. And we can then see a small backward step, probably significantly not that significant, statistically not that significant today, but probably reflects the 7 or 8 weeks that we lost with lockdowns in 2020. And then we've seen the impact of the cheap money, the deferred, holidays, and the confidence that comes on the back of rising house prices. But when we actually look at the value increase year on year, we can actually see that A&A made up about 15% of the total residential construction market back in 2016. It's actually dropped to just under 12%. When we then look at the actual increase in terms of the dollar value that we're seeing through the last few years, we can see that really this has been a story of cheap money and deferred holidays. And I suppose that's something that we're those of you who are exposed to the A&A market have seen. One thing I would mention is that this is probably even higher. And just remember, last year we had the exemptions around the small dwellings, so under 10 square meters or up to 30 square meters if there's no bathroom. So that is now no longer measured where it was in our 2019 data. So, and also the fact we've seen such a large increase in the new build market for A&A work to have grown, it's probably again shown sort of some relative strength that it's probably not reflected as strongly in these numbers here. I spoke to brands yesterday and asked them about their modelling. Their personal modelling, they're actually seeing the A&A market at around the same size as what we saw in 2016 and 2017. So they haven't quite seen this bump in the modelling that they've got. And their eyes wide open view is access to finance and the cost of finance will actually start to hit the A&A market quite significantly. So I think this is probably something we should touch back on certainly every 6 months, but may well do that every quarter. With that in mind, I'm going to put together a bit of a summary of that and send that through to you all. Happy to take questions on that offline. Hope that was of some value, and again, happy to continue that discussion. Now, next session, so we've got 4 fortnight sessions lined up. Next time, I actually really want to look into the feedback we're getting is that we're going to have to get used to delivering information digitally, and we're going to have to up our game. So I want to come with some ideas around how we can actually manage, support and influencing specifiers remotely. That'll be, hopefully we'll have a little bit of interaction in that, and I'll be able to share some ideas around what we are thinking. Any of you are interested of the I've just been researching cohort learning, which is something that's developed quite quickly in the US. I think they're a bit further ahead in terms of digital delivery and online learning. So if you want to have a look at cohort learning, there's a company called Maven Consultants. They're doing a good job there. That'll get you in line with where I'm heading and where I think there's some good opportunities for us all. So, fortnight on Tuesday. Until then, I want to thank you for your attendance today and wish you a great fortnight. Enjoy this wonderful weather that we've now got back and look forward to seeing you all again. If not then, sometime in the near future. Thanks, team.